Do you believe that Russia is an enemy of the United States?
I've said publicly before, and I'll say again, sir, that I think that Russia is the top threat to the U.S.
So you agree with the testimony of General Dunford and several other members of the Joint Chiefs that Russia is our #1 threat geopolitically in the world?
Yes.
Has the United States ever had assured access to space?
That's our top job, is to make sure we have assured access to space.
But under the current understanding, have we had assured access to space?
Yes.
We have. Okay. Could we end our reliance on these Russian-made rockets today and still maintain assured access to space by relying on Falcon 9 and Delta IV?
I would say it's theoretically possible, but the devil would be very much in the details.
So both of those rockets are certified. They can carry all kinds of lift, heavy, intermediate, and so forth. Why is that only theoretically possible?
There is a current manifest based on warfighter needs and the intelligence community needs, and that manifest to a certain degree depends on a mixture of engines. If you were to suddenly swing and take one type of engine away and say hereforth it must be only this sort of engine, that would require probably delays in launches. I'm thinking certainly it would be a lot more money because Delta is a much more expensive proposition. It would have to be reworked. There would be a lot of details to work through.
What kind of gap would you fear if that were the case?
Without doing an analysis detailed, I would be totally guessing. I would guess years, but that's a guess.
And what is the current status of the possibility of replacing the RD-180 with an American-made rocket, or rocket engine, say the AR-1 or the BE-4?
We're marching toward 2019. That's the way all of our urgency is directed. And industry tells us, and we certainly think it's possible, though it's going to be challenging, to make 2019 for an engine. But I must say, an engine alone will not get us to space. It needs to be integrated with a rocket. It needs to be tested. It needs to be certified. And to get all of that done, to have a launch capability, will be longer than 2019.
Which theoretically we could do now, though, with the Falcon 9 and the Delta IV, since they are certified.
I say theoretically, but it would require looking into all of those details.
So I'm struggling with why this isn't, you can't maintain the promise of future competition if you just pursue a split buy for a few years of the 9 and the 4 until those new engine is developed. If it is a top priority not to rely on these Russian-made rocket engines. Secretary Kendall, you look like you want to.
Yeah, there are several problems with that. One is obviously the cost of Delta. It's tens of millions of dollars more than Atlas or Falcon 9.
But we've paid $800 million for no activity.
So we paid $800 million for specific cost associated with maintaining the infrastructure that ULA has for launching both Atlas and Delta. That cost is associated with the capacity to launch 8 launches per year. And those costs have been reviewed many times. They're reasonable costs for us to bear. It's not nothing, as Chairman indicated. I'm sorry about that. The difficulties with Delta are its effect on the loss of Atlas's effect on ULA's viability, the cost of Delta, tens of millions of dollars more, the amount of time it would take us to ramp up production of Delta, which would be on the order of 3 years. And then some other minor issues that we could probably work our way around if we had to. So it's not impossible, it's just very difficult.
And could I also add, Delta is the one that is not commercially competitive. So if we were to swing in that direction, we would be the sole customer, I believe. And the price, again, likely, but we would have to examine the details, would go up even more than the differential today between Delta and Atlas, because this ELC arrangement you've been hearing so much about, those costs, I can pretty well guarantee, would somehow be calculated into the new price of Delta. Whether you call it an ELC arrangement or whether you call it something different, I believe the U.S. taxpayer would bear those costs.
Well, my time is concluding, and I'll say that in a program that spends billions of dollars over the years, tens of millions of dollars of cost to develop an American-made capability, so we're not depending on our #1 geopolitical adversary's industrial base, seems to me a reasonable cost to bear, in particular when their industrial base is going to be able to use those profits in part to develop their counter space capabilities, and we're going to be putting into our rockets parts that are made in Russia that, for all we know, might be corrupted or have some kind of cyber threat to them. So I would opine that we might want to consider bearing those costs to develop domestic capabilities as quickly as we can to include the 2 rockets that are currently certified.